Good morning, everyone. Thanks for the time today. It's great to be here, and I'm glad we didn't go right after lunch. So thank you, Ken, for the help with the schedule there. That was good. I'm Eric Redmond at Trimble, and some of you may know Trimble from our geospatial background. We started out in the late 70s with some of the early GPS survey equipment. And since that time, have built on that expertise. We have CityWorks for asset management at municipalities, Agile Assets for pavement condition assessment. We have eBuilder for program management and digital project delivery. And there's tools like SketchUp and Quadri for BIM and 3D modeling. And a lot of people still, even to this day, Trimble acquired SketchUp from Google about 10 years ago. And people still say, oh, I don't use any Trimble stuff. I don't have anything, and they're a SketchUp, pro user. So anyway, fun fact there, if you didn't know that, SketchUp is part of the Trimble family as well. So I'm really happy today with this panel because I think we've got a neat deep dive into the public sector owner side, and then also the consulting side with Parsons. So I want to turn it over, maybe Julie from LA Metro, maybe a quick intro on your side.
Okay. So Julie Owen, I lead the project controls team at LA Metro in the program management department. And we have a lot going on right now, gearing up for the Olympics, $25 billion in construction right now, and $50 billion in the planning pipeline. And it's really maxing out every level at Metro, all the cities that we support, all the contractors that support us, consultants, the small businesses, et cetera. It's just a massive program to coordinate. So it's exciting times. It really is an exciting time at LA Metro, changing, the face of lives in LA County and beyond, because a lot of people come into LA County to work, So it's really exciting. Thanks for the opportunity to be on the panel today.
Great. Yeah, excellent. And Rob, yourself?
Yeah, hi everybody. I'm Rob McCarthy. I've been with Parsons around 4 years. That whole time I've worked on different capital programs around the world, had the chance to help advance those programs. Currently I'm a program manager over at the California Delta Conveyance Project, about a $15 billion program. Within Parsons, I've helped organize what we call Parsons X. You can look it up, but it's a vision to pull all of our technology solutions into one place so that we can serve those solutions to all of our different markets. I have both an engineering and a technology background, and I try to apply both to programs and the lessons I learn.
Great. Yeah, that's really interesting. Julie, you mentioned in the opening all the things going on in LA, and I'm actually really glad to be doing the Infra Day in LA because there are so many things going on. I mean, there's historic levels of funding, both federal, state level, local level. There's obviously the big events coming up. You mentioned the Olympics in 28. There's just so much going on. And then even if you look at the city and the municipal area, there's a lot to maintain as well, right? There's a ton of maintenance out there. So I guess, kind of looking at it from a high level, what are some of those technical tools that can help with that program delivery?
Okay, so we implemented our own our program management information system. That's a suite of products. The first one I'd like to mention is all of our projects for our entire 50-year program. From every phase, from the beginning of environmental through into operations, are in our enterprise scheduling system, which is Oracle Primavera P6. So we use that for all of our planning and scheduling and resource management, and then cost-loaded schedules from contractors to know what our cash flow is going to be for the agency. We also have implemented for our project delivery Oracle Primavera Unifier. We're doing all of our document control, change control, cost control in the Unifier application. Again, and that's for the program management division for projects that are in engineering construction, for a lot of our contract and commitment management and forecasting, which is a big deal right now because with such a massive program over a 50-year period, then you get into making sure some of the challenges related to escalation, inflation, things of that nature. How is that impacting our project? What are the cost forecasts? So we do our estimating in 2 applications, Sage, Timberline, and HCSS Heavy Bid. So having a enterprise environment for our estimates as well, and then trying to standardize on a solution so that we can evaluate, when we're looking at a contractor's bid, especially now in an alternative delivery environment, making sure that you can come to the table and speak the same language, so to speak. And then risk management, my head of risk management at the agency, David Davies, is in the audience. So we've got, I think, SWORD active risk is what he had, and then we're looking at, something beyond that, possibly in Unifier. That's in test right now. What did I forget? Then we actually quality too, lessons learned. We use Parsons Parcom system for lessons learned, and also we're trying to go ISO 9001 for our quality program at Metro also.
Wow. Yeah, there's a lot there. There really is a lot of tools and obviously a lot of complexity around that. I want to get into the next one of where are the gaps still to be addressed. But maybe Rob, from your perspective, with all the background you have in PMIS, what are some of the most effective tools that maybe you've seen, to manage these projects?
Well, so I think where the best results happen is when you take whatever tools you use. A lot of the ones you mentioned are best in class, right? To me, the key isn't necessarily which tool you pick. It's how you speed up the time to decision, right? And how you get the information from these various tools and make faster decisions on your capital plan. Quickly identify risks that need the most urgent, mitigation, and make sure that's budgeted, now. Prioritizing projects when one slips to the next fiscal year. Which one can I bring in? So I think what we see is there's a lot of tools out there, and a lot of them have their specialties, but for one person to make decisions to look across those tools is very difficult. So I think the secret sauce, if you will, or the gap fillers, is connecting that data in a way that makes sense, that you can see trends, you can see exceptions, and you can make actionable decisions.
Yeah, that's so important. I mean, these projects are so complex and they're so costly, right? So you really need to keep an eye on that part of it. What about the opposite question of what gaps are still there? I always, I've been in the vendor community in my career, and I think there's a tendency to say, oh, technology will fix everything and we've got it all covered. But, we all know that isn't true. There's still gaps. And maybe, Julie, from the owner side, what are some of those gaps that are still to be filled? That technology is maybe not addressing, or needs that you still see?
Well, I know one thing we did a couple of years ago was integrating P6, integrating Unifier, integrating our accounting system, so that we would have, real-time data and be able to notice trends and things of that nature. But a big challenge we're having right now, it's not necessarily technology, it's people. Because, we, again, I was mentioning our massive program. A couple years ago during COVID, we lost 20% of our agency to retirement. So we're at a critical time because none of our projects stopped. If anything, they speeded up, So where are all the people going to come from to deliver this program? I know currently right now, I'm trying to double the size of my project controls department in a era where right now the unemployment rate for construction professionals is at 2.2%. 2.2%, which is more than a 30-year low of people, right? So trying to come up with innovative ways of where are we going to find these resources through the consultant community, leveraging contracts with the consultants. Where are we going to find contractors? Because skilled labor is at a 3.3%, low also unemployment rate. So I loved I wrote his name down, sorry. What Matt said early on in the very first panel of the day, that making sure that we create the pathways into the industry so people don't just happen into it. There's oftentimes a joke in transportation that people fall into it, or project controls, which is my discipline, people fall into it. We need to actively go out and recruit, everywhere, to bring people in, looking at equity issues, growing small business. Metro's got a new initiative we just implemented called the 48 by 28 program, where we want 48% small business on our projects. That's largely because we know we need to fill the gap. So we're constantly trying to mentor and develop that talent and grow as much and as fast as possible to be able to meet the need. Because we used to, at once upon a time, deliver one project at a time. And that was pretty easy because you just take the same team that's been doing it forever, and they go to the next one, and then they go to the next one. But now we're doing 10 at the same time, right? Our department has actually doubled in size if you look between staff and consultants. So our ability to develop this talent and put them out, on projects where they can work effectively as a team, is, as other panels have been saying, the number one issue first is people. And, I know we love to sell technology, but if I don't have the people, and then if I don't have the process, tools don't matter. Technology doesn't matter. I have to have the first two before I start rolling into the third one. So that's a big issue that we're dealing with right now, and it does take us working at every level collaboratively to solve the problem, because it's not just one. Because you look at what's happening in LA, with all the work that's happening with LA Metro, with LAWA, with all the water development, we're all going for the same pool of resources. And that just affects every level.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, I think maybe too, some of the younger generations don't see, Metro as like, they see Apple, right? Or they maybe see Google and they want to go into that tech track, and they maybe don't see the career opportunity. And I think there really is a good one in that public sector. What about you, Rob? You might have had a perspective on some of those gaps there.
Yeah, a couple of thoughts. The first one is kind of not anti-technology, but in-person work cannot be replaced by technology. At least it hasn't been today. When you're starting up this Delta Conveyance program, it started in 2018, 2019, brand new authority, working on site, set up a new office, full office built out, 2020. Then we all went home. Well, we had the great tools. We could all collaborate, but we couldn't really solve the complex problems. It wasn't until we started going back into the office. We have the tools, but we do an on-site, fly everyone in, and work together for a week every month. And that's where a lot of the problems really get solved. Without with the technology in the room, but with people in person. I think that's really just hard to replace. Another kind of observation on the labor and labor challenges here. I think going the opposite way. I think technology is an enabler. In 1975, Parsons won a project to build a city in Yanbu, Saudi Arabia. And at that time, everybody had to go to Yanbu and live in Saudi Arabia, and some have lived there for the last 50 years, right? Because, you had to be there. In 2004, we did a big reconstruction program in Iraq. And I went to Iraq, but we were able to set up offices in Jordan and Houston, and we had enough of a, internet sharing technology that we could actually work together. Come now, last year Parsons was awarded the program in Saudi Arabia for NEOM, the line, another city, building a city. And you can imagine staffing up, again, thousands and thousands of people. But now the team is made up of, a lot of people on site, but there's also a group of people in Europe, there's a group of people in America that are all working together. So I feel part of the labor challenge in LA could be solved by looking outside of LA too.
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective, and I think we're all probably struggling with the remote work, right, and in person, and then what's the right mix, and you hear like well, it's 2 days a week in, and 3 out, or it's 3 days in, 2 out, and or it's all remote. And I think that's still to be written, right? And but you have a great point that nothing replaces that in-person collaboration. So that's such an important thing, especially with a complex project. I think that can be really critical. What about if we look at from the technology side of we deliver the project, but then now what, right? When it's handed over to operations and it's kind of, substantial completion is done, how does the technology kind of influence that part? I mean, ideally everything would be kind of shrink wrapped and in a bow, right? And it would go to that operations side to be maintained. But I think Julie, you had a good comment about, trying to avoid like throwing things over the fence, right? That it was just, here you go, and that smoothing that handoff. But any thoughts on that part of it?
Well, some of the things we've been working on is, collaboration, and then also what needs to happen, because there has been a history, which we're trying to work away from, where I call it the data tsunami. You get to the end of a project and you just throw, at one point in time it was all, paper, all the operations maintenance manuals, the warranties, as-built, all that, just deliver it. The project team would walk away, and then we'd leave, ops to deal with it. Now we are, then we moved to an electronic age where we would then give all of the information, PDF. But now we're trying to work towards, being able to give, I think Patrick's team, when they were going through the implementation in the beginning for his asset management system, they came up and they said, okay, Julie, we want to make sure that your contractor, for every piece of equipment they deliver, that they give us 135 different attributes of data for every piece of equipment. I told my boss that, and when he finished falling on the floor, he said, we have a challenge right now just getting the contractors to deliver the projects and follow the contracts that we have right now. If we're going to put all this additional burden on them, it's never going to happen. Well, now Patrick, through collaboration, they said, well, what are the critical data elements? And then it boils down to about 7 or something like that, if I remember correctly. And that's much more doable now, right? Now we're talking, right? Be able to give them the information on, and I just want to clarify, Patrick, the piece of equipment that you found was not delivered by our department. That's not the way we roll. But there are repairs that happen sometimes that don't get documented. So not by us, just to be clear. But trying to make sure that we're speaking the same language, because sometimes in capital project delivery, we deliver things by spec section and they're by subsystem, right? And that's how all of our deliverables and our contracts are organized, right? But that's not the same language or vernacular that happens in an asset management system. So trying to make sure that you have a translation table, right? We're looking at possibly moving into building information modeling. I know Patrick can tell you everything he's doing for his Hexagon product, but I would love if we could move towards having a BIM standard for our agency where we could have a living model, a digital twin, possibly, where all of the equipment information is then put in the model, and then we find a way to export that and give Patrick exactly what he needs. Right now, we're looking at doing it just in Excel. That's kind of a first step, but hopefully beyond that, we'll move in that direction. So.
Yeah, interesting. What about you, Rob? What are your perspective on that one?
Yeah, I'll echo what you said, Julie. I think just as we're sort of siloed organizationally, we're siloed in our language. We're speaking different languages between program management and O&M, and bridging that gap is the key. In program management, you have your work breakdown structure, you have your budget, you have your specs, you have your schedule for getting the work done, you have your deliverables. But we don't have on the O&M side, you have your preventative maintenance, your facility condition assessment, your corrective actions, and they don't necessarily relate, right, directly. So I think creating that map in the program management phase, to asset management is key. And on the Delta Conveyance program right now, we're building an asset hierarchy during planning and design. That can be used to manage the assets when they're created. As far as digital twins and capturing everything, having one pane of glass for all of your information, I think it's very visionary and good. We hear a lot of hype about it in the market today. It's hard to do, but I think you can go about it a couple of ways. One way is like at an airport we're working with right now, a very large airport. They didn't do any digital twin or any asset collection, and so we're helping them scan, we're helping them inventory, we're helping them do condition assessments, and we're just helping them collect the information about what they already have to be able to manage it. And another client, we're using the model, and it doesn't always have to be a BIM model because they're expensive. It could be a geospatial model. It could be like a process diagram or a network diagram. But whatever's intuitive for people to use, not only during design and construction, but hand it over to operations. You get the best investment for your dollar because you're invested in putting in the contracts in your capital plan. Capital money can probably be used to pay for that, and then the benefit gets passed on to the O&M team. So that's emerging and kind of growing in the industry. Different organizations are at different stages. But I think as long as that model brings value to each stage of the process, so for the designers, it's it's conflict resolution. It's ensuring all the different disciplines are working together. During construction, it's construction sequencing. It's turnover planning. But it's also collecting all the O&M manuals and the maintenance schedules, and taking that information and being able to hand that over then to O&M, connect the the sensors, monitor performance, et cetera. So I think if you take a broader look, you get the best success. But if you try to invest in it at the end, it's going to cost you more and maybe be less quality.
I know I would love to see us start to leverage it even earlier, beginning in the environmental process, because one of the major challenges we have on our projects is stakeholder engagement and having the stakeholders understand what are we trying to build, how will it affect your business, how will it affect the community. I think I saw some folks from High Speed Rail here. I saw a really great example of a augmented reality, that they'd done with the visor and all of that, showing what will high-speed rail look like. And I was jealous, I was like, yeah, it's really cool. And I would love for us to see that, because one of the things that would be also really beneficial, although we engage our operations team early during the environmental clearance phase, if they could interact with a model in an augmented situation and walk through, the area before it was built, then they could pick out, oh, this is a problem, that's a problem, this is a problem.
Yeah.
Wow. I think there needs to be more of that in the future. I think we'll get there eventually. I just think sometimes public agencies we're not the bleeding edge. It takes time.
Yeah, that's interesting. You touched on a point, and it was something I wanted to bring up is that engagement. And I always look at the public side too, right? And I do a lot of work in transit. So I always ask my friends and relatives, like, hey, what do you know about that project? Do you know about this project? And one of the things I hear about is, oh yeah, but isn't that over budget? Or how come it takes so long? Why is this never on time type of thing? And that seems to be a common theme, even in the press, right? You hear about, oh, it's now cost overrun, or it's not going to make it in time, and why not, and everything. Are there areas that technology can address that part, that cost and schedule side?
I know one of the things we're starting, or I shouldn't say starting, one of the things because one of the challenges with Metro is we're big, is silos. Right? Trying to make sure that you have a common thread from the beginning to the end. And believe it or not, early in the planning phase, what is the scope of this project, right? And being aware when the scope changes for whatever reason, right? because sometimes, I shouldn't say often, sometimes the scope will change. There'll be collaboration with our stakeholders, and somebody will want to add more scope to the project. And catching why those things are happening so that they can then be estimated as to what's going to be the cost and schedule impact. Because there might be a really good reason why it has to, but making sure that there's a corresponding change, and that management, the board, everyone knows, okay, this is going to affect the budget by this amount of money, and this much more time. And where is that money going to come from? Is the city going to pay for it? Is the third party going to pay for it? Are we going to go out for more funding? So managing the scope and making sure that we're aware of those things. We're getting engaged. We have something happening at LA Metro right now called the Early Intervention Team that's being led by our Deputy CEO, where we take projects through a review process early on, and we bring all the departments, all the stakeholders within the agency to the table, and we talk through these things early on, so that we're looking at what are the reasons some of these project costs can go up. Because it is a challenge right now, especially in today's marketplace, to rein those things and make sure that they're communicated and controlled. If city number one, actually I see Kavita back there in the office of Sepulveda, somebody says, I want to add, this much more subway to your project, or you need to add an extra station here, right? Making sure that that information is being communicated as to what's the impact. Because in some cases, some things can be, Phil Washington, our prior CEO, used to call them ornaments on the tree. At some point, you can kill a project with too many ornaments on the tree. So making sure that you manage that process.
Yeah, that's a great point. I know there's always been those things that happen to you, like utilities that are unmapped or something, right? And those delay the project. But maybe in the final minute, Rob, what's your perspective on that part? You've seen a lot of these projects. How do you stay on time, on budget?
Yeah, I agree with you, Julie. And I think there's a project perspective and a programmatic perspective. One thing that I don't see a lot of organizations do that well, they really kind of give it lip service, is risk management. So proactive risk management creates should create mitigation plans that you could get ahead of. It should help you create defendable contingency in your cost estimates and in your schedule. And if you manage that right, you can manage expectations on your project and within your program, I feel. And I think tools can help you do that. If you can have a tool that helps you build and manage those risks and quantify the contingency and justify it, you can get the extra budget you need to anticipate things that are going to happen that you don't know about yet. So one thing from a couple things from a programmatic perspective, I think is not just the cost, schedule, scope of a project, but okay, how well am I delivering at my overall program? I've committed to spend this much this fiscal year, and why am I not making it, or why am I way over? Why are things slipping? So I think enabling tools that get you quick access to how individual projects are doing, so that you can make decisions that help you adjust your program, that will help you meet the overall fiscal year goals that you have. One other kind of programmatic approach, and I'm out of time, is for the FAA, where we do program management. We built an AI tool that looks at all the past scopes and actual costs from similar projects in the past, and use that to help create estimates that the estimators use to help validate what they've created. And that's, things like that can improve quality of our estimates and our schedules.
Fantastic. Well, I guess we'll have to leave it there, but it sounds like there's some great tools. There's also still those challenges. Thank you, Rob and Julie, both for being here today.
I got to plug Dave Davies, who's going to be coming up this afternoon, so check him out too.
Great. Excellent.
Thank you.